right, my friends, welcome back. This is going to be part 60 of my presentation on the flood and Noah's Ark. And in this one here, we're going to start getting into the evolution side of it, the uniformitarian side of it, and what do they say about the things that were reported to have been found in the phosphate beds and what their explanation of it is. And then we're going to go into some of the attacks of Mr. Holmes, Francis Holmes, and look at some of them, some of those personal attacks that they made. And believe me, they made some darn good attacks on him. And so, but I went in, I tried to do a little bit of background to find out if these things were true. And so I got to admit, I was kind of set back because they made this guy into some kind of clown for the most part. And so, but I was really set back when I found out. I was like, wow. And so, and then after all this is done, we're going to get into some helps, some places that you can go to learn more and to see both sides. And so I'm going to give you that too. And so you'll have a good working knowledge, guys. After all this is done, you should have a good working knowledge about the phosphate beds, kind of where it started from, and what it is, what was found there, and kind of what both sides are stating. And so, but at any rate, let's get started and let's see how far we can go in this one. If you'll notice here, it says that this is going to be the uniformitarian or the evolution explanations. The remains of domestic animals and men became occupants of the phosphate beds by accident. The animals and men became bogged down, finally expired, and were intermingled in the deposits of the swampy region that the phosphate beds had become upon being uplifted from the shallow sea that had generated them, together with entrapment of the remains of the myriad of sea monsters that are mingled part of their makeup, that are a mingled part of their makeup, excuse me. But myriad mingled land animals remains occur in the phosphate beds too, exposing the great weakness of this explanation. Vast mixed herds of many types of land animals becoming mired and subsequently buried throughout a 6,000 square mile region. State geologist Louis Agassiz called it the greatest graveyard he had ever known. Another explanation suggested from in non-creationist literature is that herds of animals along rivers were drowned in a flood, with their carcasses being carried to the littoral of the sea with subsequent fossilization among sea creatures. But this explanation has the same weakness as the first. The required vastness of the numbers of animals, their mixing without obliteration of their hard parts, and rapid burial across a 6,000 square mile region, all too extraordinary and improbable by uniformitarian processes to believe. How could swollen carcasses of quadrupeds, etc., have been detained in one spot in countless lengthy repetitions, shifting laterally until the remains could form an evenly disposed stratum averaging perhaps 15 to 18 inches thick over so vast an area? The next one, an alternate evolutionary uniformitarian explanation offered, is that copious fecal waste of myriads of land animals in lowland swamp contiguous to sea became converted into rock phosphate. The fatal weakness of this explanation is in the question, why did the swamps of the region become a vast restroom that necessarily included its use by a myriad of animals of the surrounding region in order to account for a deposit so concentrated and widespread? The explanation smacks of the absurd. One of the things that I'm going to point you to is there is a YouTube channel called Aaron Raw. Aaron Raw. It's Ronra. Now, he does not like creationists. He don't like it at all. But guys, he's pretty popular on YouTube. And so if I'm going to put a link in the description below for my YouTube people and my Rumble people, my Facebook people, you just look into the description above. But the name of the video, it's a YouTube video. It's called Creationist Ignorance on the Ashley Phosphate Beds. Creation Ignorance on the Phosphate Beds. And what he did is he interviewed a geologist named Dr. Boisenecker, and who has studied the area of the phosphate beds in South Carolina for at least 7 to 8 years at the time of the interview. And so, so just to be fair, and just to give everybody a chance to see the other side, I'm going to point you to that. But what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about some of the things that they mention in that video. Now, what they're doing is they're peeling apart Ian Juby's video that he did about the Ashley phosphate beds, and they're stopping and making statements about that. And so now one of the things that they did is they hammered on Ian Juby's statement about the phosphate beds extending from Florida into Canada as if it was a continuous layer from Florida all the way to Canada. Now, I will say this. I personally could not find anything that said that there was a continuous layer from Florida all the way to Canada. I couldn't find anything. But that's not what Ian stated. All he said is it was quite probably extending into Florida and Canada. But the areas that Ian points out of having phosphate beds is correct. I'm wanting to say them. Let me look at my past slides here, and I am going to double check. Let me double check this. Okay, I said other areas of mentioning phosphate mining was Florida was the largest source at Bone Valley, North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana. These were the areas that they're talking about. Now, they were hammering him for the most part because it was going to be on the coast, along the coast of the United States, and from Florida all the way into Canada. And that's not what he said. That's not what he stated. Ian stated that he said it was quite probably extending into Florida and Canada. And so that's not a for sure thing. He's just mentioned it. It could be. It very well could be. And so, but at any rate, they hammered on him on that point. And they also, Ian was talking about the front of the cover having a dinosaur and man on it. And they were kind of hammering him on that, stating that, I guess Holmes was trying to trying to push the idea that man and dinosaur actually live together. And so let's take a look at that real quick. Let's take a look at, because that's not what he was doing. He was not trying to push that idea. If you'll look at this cover here, this is the cover of Francis Holmes's book, The Phosphate Rocks of South Carolina, Their History and Development. And then if you'll notice down there at the bottom of that picture, it says Hadrosaurus, and you've got the scientific name for it, and but then it's got Leedy right beside of it. Now, Leedy was professor of human anatomy at the University of Pennsylvania, and named and described the first discovered duck-billed dinosaur that was on the cover of Holmes's book, Phosphate Rocks of South Carolina and the Great Carolina Marl Bed. And so all he's doing is he's doing that because of what Leedy did. He wasn't trying to push the idea that man and dinosaurs actually live together. And that picture there is actually called 1868, The Waterhouse, Hawkins, and Dinosaur, the Waterhouse Hawkins and Dinosaur. And the background on that picture, if you'll notice that picture right there, that's exactly where this came from. It looks like the dinosaur looks exactly the same as what's on Holmes's book there. It's just the guy is positioned differently. He's positioned in a different way. But the background on that, it says that Benjamin Waterhouse Hawkins and his Hadrosaurus Folke, the world's first mounted dinosaur skeleton from Sketches of Creation by Winchell, 1870, engraved from photographs taken around 1868. The discovery of the first, excuse me, American dinosaur, 1858, revolutionized earlier concepts of their form and lifestyle. Waterhouse Hawkins was keen to update his designs from the Crystal Palace dinosaurs to reflect this in New York's proposed Paleozoic Park. The reconstruction was built by Hawkins under the advice of Joseph Leedy and Ed Cope, then put on display at the Academy of Natural Sciences in Philadelphia in 1868. It caused a sensation with nearly 100,000 visitors, and started dinomania in the USA. Such mounted dinosaur skeletons would henceforth be mainstay of natural history museums worldwide. And so that is the background of that picture there. And so now, as far as dinosaurs being found in South Carolina, have dinosaur remains been found in South Carolina? Outside the mention of them in Holmes and Keener's early works, a recently published book by David B. I'm going to try his name, Wishample and Luther Young, provides the answer. First, dinosaur remains have been found in South Carolina. Second, hadrosaur, duck-billed dinosaur remains have recently been discovered in several locations in South Carolina. Third, and in confirmation of Watson's main conclusion, Wishample and Young report, in addition, 2 hadrosaurid teeth came from Kingstree in Williamsburg County, although they were mixed with Paleocene and Pleistocene fossils, and their stratigraphic source is uncertain. And this admission points out that duck-billed dinosaur remains, supposedly having died out 65 million years ago, are mixed with fossils living at the same time as mammoths and early man. And so if anybody really wanted to hammer on anything, they could just say that the source is uncertain, but they did report that they were found in here. And so now the gentleman that Aaron Raw was interviewing stated that they weren't any dinosaur fossils that were found. And so, again, they said that they did find some. And so, as far as, teeth and stuff. And so, okay, let's stop right here. I think this is a good place to pause for a minute, because the next thing we're going to talk about is some of the attacks that have been made on Francis Holmes. And so I did some little digging and some research and found some really fascinating things about Mr. Holmes that was quite surprising even to me. And so, because they had made this guy, they had villainized this guy so bad, they made him into a clown. I mean, they really hammered on him, and made him back as if he just really had no clue what he was doing. And so I was quite surprised some of the things that I found, and I'm going to share that with you on our next video. And so, but anyhow, you guys take care. I hope you've been enjoying this and learning something. I love you. I hope the Lord blesses you real good. Bye-bye.